looked at the list of speakers, and I thought I must have been invited by accident, because it must have been a mistake, because there were such luminaries. 3 of our stars of the 2015 intake, and John Edward, who we just heard from, and I think we've got Chris Snowden coming up, who's spoken and written about this matter with such authority and insight over so many years, that I thought, well, surely it must have been an accident, a mistake to invite me, but here I am. And of course, one of the difficulties you have on an evening like this is when you've got a lineup of speakers, and it only occurred to me, really at the very last minute as I was arriving, I thought, well, look, I just wonder if somebody else has already said what I was going to say. But fortunately, I've stood there, I've not heard everybody, but I understand. If Chris said the same as me, well, I'm sorry about that. I missed Lucy's comments. There we are. It's one of the dangers that we run. I hopefully will not be saying and repeating what anyone else has said. I should say at the outset, look, I'm conscious of the fact that you're Conservatives for Liberty, and there are probably some real true libertarians out there. And if so, let me say at the outset, you'll probably think I'm probably a bit of a lefty, because I don't believe that everything should be legalised, for example. I think that we're in the right place on hard drugs, for example. And I know that true libertarians will say to me, oh, well, why don't we legalise drugs? But with 1 or 2 exceptions, I do think that my job as a parliamentarian should be to defend our freedoms. That's what I regard my principal job for, and to try and stop what I see as the relentless march of the nanny state. Now, what I want to do this evening is just set out for you what I see to be the how to put it, the anatomy of how these campaigns go, because things rarely go from being completely unregulated to being banned overnight. These things follow a pattern, and we've seen it with the control of tobacco over the last few decades. And you can essentially divide politicians up between those who want to control more and those who believe in standing up for freedom and individual personal liberty. And broadly speaking, there are obviously people who will agree on one thing and not on another, but broadly speaking, that there are those 2 camps of politicians. So if we look at what's happened with tobacco, and we're seeing it happen again, and I'll come on to that, with sugary foods and with salty foods and high-fat foods. We start off with a link with ill health. So there's some pressure group, some academic produce a report that say, well, if you do X, it will result in ill health. Now, obviously with smoking, it's pretty easy to do and everybody accepts that. But where do we go from there? Well, what happens next is that they get all their friends in the academic world to back them up. They set up a pressure group and they start interacting with this place. So that here in Parliament, there'll be an all-party parliamentary group set up, there'll be questions asked in Parliament, there'll be a debate, and gradually the pressure will build up on government to be seen to be doing something. And no minister likes to be seen not to be doing something. It's one of the worst things in politics. All ministers like to be seen to be doing something. And so eventually someone who's leading the campaign will put down a testing motion to say, well, let's just bring in a little bit of regulation. They won't go for the outright ban straight away. And we saw with cigarettes, it started off with a ban on advertising, ban on sponsorship. And then from there, we started with the increase of taxation, gradually cranking up the taxation on the product. And then we moved to the outright ban in smoking in public buildings, in public places. and from there we went to having warnings on packets, telling people if they'd just dropped in from the planet Zod and not realised that smoking was dangerous, we thought, well, we better put it on the packet as well. And then, of course, we had the display ban. And then despite the fact that the cigarettes were behind a screen, we've now got the plain packaging regulations. Well, it's a bit academic because you can't see the things because they're behind a screen. And then it doesn't end there, because the people, sort of, having moved from banning it in the public space, we'd seen this in Parliament happening. They then started banning it in the private space and saying, oh, well, we're going to make it illegal to smoke in a vehicle if children are present. They overlooked the ridiculous situation where a parent could be at home all day in a small room with a child smoking all day long. No problem, that's perfectly all right. And they go into the car and say, oh, well, that's now illegal, even though they probably then open the window and let the smoke run out of the window. There are so many anomalies, and we've not ended there. Because now Brighton and Hove Council are consulting about banning smoking outside of buildings, in parks and public spaces. It will happen again, because there is a massive industry that supports the nanny state. There is a big industry out there, and as soon as they've done one thing, they want to get on to the next thing. And it's happening already with sweets, with sugary drinks, with high fat content foods. The health lobby, what you would want to call the enjoyment police, because anything, it seems to me, that people enjoy, whether it's smoking or drinking or gambling, eating chocolate, drinking sweet drinks, it's these things that they seem to want to penalise. They want to inflict their views on you. They want to say, look, I think I know better than you do. And that's where I cross swords with them and say, look, I actually want to stand up for the right of an individual to make a mistake and to take the wrong choice in life. If that's what they want to do, I say, fine, let's get on with it. That's their choice in life. It should not be the job of government to stop people making the wrong choice. And so I'm happy to answer lots of questions, no problems about that, but I want to leave you with this one conclusion on this. And that is this, that you can all help in this, because there is a continuous thread about these campaigns, that as soon as they start and as soon as they see a weakness in government, and as I've just explained, it's pretty easy because ministers never like to be seen to be not doing something. As soon as they've achieved one success, they bank it and they move on and get something else. They never call it a day. They never say, well, that's it, we'll leave it there. They will always fight on and try and get more and more control. Partly because, as I say, it's an industry, and partly because it's in their DNA to want to control people and to want to control people's lives. So what I say to you, my message tonight is very simple. Keep fighting and keep standing up for individual freedom and personal liberty. Thank you very much.
The next big thing the public health lobby seems to be pushing is a sugar tax, and this time they have the help of Jamie Oliver. I wonder, are there any lessons you think we can take from tobacco control and how that advanced over the years that we can apply now to this issue and to stop it?
Yeah, I think it's about making the case for people to have that individual freedom, because it's all too easy for the health lobby, the enjoyment police, as I've just done them, to be able to recruit a sympathetic celebrity, Jamie Oliver in that case, or whoever it might be. They then, of course, have the ear of the media, and they will then get a newspaper on side and the whole industry cranks up its battalions to go out and say, right, we want regulation. We want you to do something. It's not right that people should be eating Mars bars. It's not right that people should be eating ice cream and eating pizzas. Get them in plain packages. You know, it's attracting people, and we've already seen it, because I have to say that there's already been action, okay, voluntary action, about taking sweets away from where the till is to stop pester power from children, you know, mums who are not able to withstand saying no to their children because they say sweets on sale at the till. I think the best thing to do, frankly, is to stand up and say, no, we're not having it. Get involved with political parties, because at the end of the day, the power does lie here. And it's about people getting involved, going along and making sure that they get representatives who are prepared to come to this place and stand up for individual freedom and not be pushed along with the tide like so many colleagues are.
Question at the back.
On this whole issue, do you think that part of the reason why there seems to be such enthusiasm for all of these bans and taxations and what have you, is that when you see inevitably on TV the film footage of somebody smoking or somebody who's eating a bag of chips or whatever, invariably they're always wearing a shell suit and never in an Armani suit. And so the point is made, it's those ill-educated, full of stupid people. Therefore, it's okay, we can tax them because they're not us. I'm wondering at what point in time, how you get the message across. Actually, it could be you next. I think there's an awful lot about it, is that people do not see that it is their liberties that are at stake too. It's those other people, the ones with the Poundland back.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think if I gathered that right from the other end of the room, what you were saying, and forgive me if I've got the wrong end of the stick there, but I think what you're trying to say is that it's a sort of social class thing, that we're sort of picking on those who are seen to be of a lower socio-economic group. Well, I think that's absolutely one of the worst reasons. Because, frankly, whatever your status in life is, I think you should have the same choices as everybody else. And one of the problems about taxing product, well, let's pick alcohol, for example, where they want to introduce the minimum price, and it's already been introduced at a very low and not effective level at the moment, but there would be some who would have it really ratcheted up. It won't affect members of Parliament. Won't affect members of Parliament on our salaries. But if you're on a fixed income, if you're a pensioner relying on a pension who just likes to go to the pub for a couple of pints, it will affect those people. It will affect the poorest in society. So I think it's a very regressive thing to do, to start to tax people, or indeed just to try and take away their liberties in any way whatsoever. Because I think we should all be treated equally, and that includes on the matter of freedom.
Absolutely. I think something that strikes me about a lot of the public health and restrictions of choice that we see are they are quite patronising, and they do kind of label some people as vulnerable and to be looked after, and then take away their choice, which I think is absolutely wrong. Let's have another question.
Okay. So yeah, some of the people in this room knew me when I was a little bit larger than I am now, width-wise, not height. And the reason that I lost weight was because on packaging they have what's in it, contents, how much fats in it, how much sugars in it, how much salts in it, etc., etc. Do you think that's fundamentally a good thing as it is now? Would you back more of that sort of thing happening, and if so, what?
Yeah, I've nothing against individuals having information, and they can then make their own mind up. Nothing wrong with that. I don't regard that as an infringement on liberty, to be able to say, well, look, I think it's right that you should tell people what they're eating and what's inside it. Then they can make their own mind up. We can debate as to what size it should be, and whether or not the traffic light system is a good idea or not, whether or not that's seen as too nanny state. I think those sorts of things around the edges are okay, I slightly contradict what I was saying earlier, because you could say that, well, even that's giving in to the health lobby. But I think there is a difference to be drawn. I can quite legitimately draw a difference between giving people information and trying to regulate and take away their liberties. I regard that essentially as giving them more freedom, more individual liberty, because they've got more information on which to base their choice. And it's very difficult to make a proper choice if there's nothing there. For example, if you've got 6 cans of orange and you don't really know which one's the pure one and which one's artificial, I think the consumer has a right to know which one's made up of chemicals and which one's pure orange juice.
Can I come back on that point? The
Very
point
briefly.
I was trying to make, as much as that, yes, it does tend to be the lowest socio-economic group. The problem is that when you've got, if you like, the better educated people who are cheering it on all of these bans and these proposals for taxation, it's because they do not see themselves in the groups being portrayed in the media. What you're doing then is you're actually establishing the principle that it is okay to control the people whose behaviour you don't disapprove of. Once that principle is established, it can actually very quickly spread into the group that you were in, that you thought was going to be okay. It's a wholesale danger to liberty, and it isn't helped by, if you like, deciding that the people who are being punitively and properly taxed deserve to this. Jamie Oliver wasn't at his local grammar school. He was down some, bog standard comprehensive in Leeds or where they were pushing the shins through. It wasn't going to be a grammar school.
Yeah, well, absolutely, I agree, and I think that the point that I made is this, that everybody has a part to play in this, and I don't think that we should pick on any group in society and say, oh, they can't make the decisions for themselves, because, as you say, the reality is that if a ban is introduced, it will affect all groups in society.
Question interesting.
Yes, so my question is, how can we better incentivise MPs and fidgety civil servants to actually give power back? Would there be support for a committee for actually which laws we could repeal?
Well, I'd certainly be in favour of that. I'm happy to serve on that committee. But there's not very much evidence of anybody ever wanting to repeal laws in this place. Everybody's always wanting to introduce laws. I mean, you've only got to look at the order paper and the enormous list of private members' bills that are on there. Every day, or virtually every day, there is a new law being proposed here by way of a private member's bill, a 10-minute rule bill, and they invariably want to try and just control things a little bit more, just to give people some extra little regulation to comply with. In answer to your question, look, the answer really, I think, lies back in the political process, because it's about making sure that the candidates that are selected are libertarians and not controlists, not nanny state people. And I have to say that, I'm not being critical of my colleagues here, but, there are people in the Conservative Party who don't necessarily agree with me on everything. So I would implore people who are members of the Conservative Party to make sure that when a Conservative is chosen to come to this place, they do at least believe in individual personal freedom. It's one of my mantras in politics. That if we don't stand up for that, then it's a pretty wishy-washy Conservative party that we're standing up and espousing views for.
Excellent. I think that's a great.
Well,